a little bit about Maine and how Maine is literally fucking killing themselves at the moment. So the Uninquirer reposted instead of just quote retweeting. It would have been nice if they quote retweeted this instead of posting the screenshot, since it's their own post, I guess, but says, if I was a landlord and found out my tenant was an illegal foreigner, is it illegal for me to contact ICE about my tenant's immigration status in Maine? And Grok said yes, under Maine's new 14 MRS 6025B, effective July 29th. A landlord may not disclose a tenant's immigration status or other personal info to ICE. And then here's a Facebook comment where someone's like, harboring aliens is a federal crime, right? Like, New Maine law forces landlords to harbor illegal foreigners and fines them if they contact ICE. And then here's an article. Dozens of new laws in Maine are now in effect. Among them is the state's supplemental budget, which includes $300 relief checks for Mainers earning less than $50,000 a year. Why are we attempting some sort of soft UBI? Among them is the state supplemental budget, which includes $300 relief checks for Mainers earning less than $50,000 a year. Those payments are expected to begin going out on Friday. The budget also makes Maine's free community college program permanent. To qualify, students must have graduated from high school and lived in Maine for at least 1 year before enrolling. Man, I can't wait for those to be swarmed with foreigners. The scholarship covers 100% of tuition at all 7 of Maine's community colleges, but it does not cover fees. Another law that took effect Wednesday extends the state's affordable housing income tax credit. The governor's office says the program has encouraged the construction and preservation of hundreds of affordable homes across Maine. The tax credit has also been extended for another 8 years. Ahead of the new school year, cell phones will be banned in Maine classrooms. Other new laws also took effect this week to address ICE activity in Maine. Where is Maine getting the money for all of this, especially considering the level of fraud on par with Minnesota happening in Maine, sending money to foreign countries, especially Somalia? Like, what are we doing here? Community is stronger than fear. New ICE out of Maine laws take effect. 3 new laws aimed at protecting Maine communities from immigration and customs enforcement's violent tactics take effect today. ICE's tactics aren't violent. The violence is what's going to happen if ICE is not able to do their jobs. Not as like any kind of wishful thinking on my part. I do not want violence to occur. That is just what's going to happen if you know anything about history. The laws, known collectively as ICE out of Maine laws, are called ICE out of policing, ICE out of our homes, and ICE out of schools and state healthcare. Maine legislature passed the laws this spring in response to the Trump administration's January ICE surge in Maine. According to the ACLU of Maine, the state's 107 police departments, 16 sheriff's departments, 12 state agencies and divisions, 17 housing authorities, and 253 school districts will need to comply with the new laws. The ICE out of policing law restricts jails and Maine law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration agencies. The ACLU of Maine said this will ensure no person is forced to choose between calling for help in an emergency or facing deportation. See, people who are here illegally or fraudulently, or who have like orders of deportation due to being extra criminal beyond just being here illegally, they should not be able to utilize our emergency services. If someone here illegally or fraudulently or is a criminal and should be deported calls for an ambulance, they should be deported. That, like, what are we doing here? Like, help them and then deport them. Our emergency services are for Americans, so it's crazy that this is something anyone would put down here. The emergency is the amount of illegals here. Unironically, yes. In a press briefing on Tuesday, Michael Kibidi, the policy director at the ACLU of Maine, said this new law will make sure local resources are not used to support the deportation machine. I wish we had a deportation machine, because the machine wouldn't even pay attention to any of these freaks trying to stop deportations from happening. It would just do it. Tax-funded services are for taxpayers? Yes. Tax-funded services are for taxpayers, and we have people who aren't taxpayers but are American citizens, and they get the benefit of all of these things as well, because they're Americans. Foreigners should not get these benefits. The law will make Maine communities safer by building community trust in government officials and ensuring every person can call for help in an emergency, regardless of their immigration status, Kibidi said. American citizens should have zero trust in government officials at this point, like regardless of your politics, because we have so many spineless do-nothing Republicans and the Democrats just want to kill you. So when they say building community trust, they mean non-Americans. Non-Americans are the community that they care about. They do not give a shit about you if you are a taxpayer, which is ironic. The ICE out of our homes law prohibits landlords from sharing sensitive tenant information, including immigration-related information, with federal agents unless the agents present a valid judicial warrant. Ben Gaines, legal director at Maine Equal Justice, said his organization has worked with immigrants whose landlords have threatened to call ICE after the tenants complained about lack of heat or hot water. So see, the immigrants, they're illegal, they need to go the fuck home. The landlords, they're disgusting, and they want to get money from these illegals instead of actually having normal people in their buildings, because they know that they can treat these illegals worse because they can threaten them. If they were real patriots, first of all, they wouldn't even rent to illegals, but if they accidentally did, as soon as they found out they were illegal, they would report them to ICE. That is what a patriot does. These landlords are disgusting and should not be abided. Trusting government officials, lol, Mao even. You would be surprised, as I was surprised previously, that there are unironically people who can hear the "I'm from the government and I'm here to help," and instead of feeling like deep-rooted gut fear, they're like, "Yay, government here, everything's fine!" And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Even Hawkenfreres, thank you. Building trust in the government by betraying citizens? Yeah, because like, what are you citizens even good for? You're all going to be replaced by these foreigners anyway, so any of your complaints just don't fucking matter. We should all feel safe in the places where our families live, learn, and heal, Gaines said. The ICE out of our homes law will help real tenants MEJ has worked with, protecting them from landlord behavior that shocks the conscience. Yeah. It shocks the conscience because the landlords know they can treat these people worse because they're here illegally. They shouldn't be here. This is something that can be held over them and make them suffer consequences. The consequences they should be suffering is getting rounded up by ICE and sent the fuck home. Not being treated like fucking animals by landlords that are evil. Like, what are we doing here? The ICE out of schools and state healthcare law prohibits employees at public schools, state libraries, and 2 state-run psychiatric hospitals from voluntarily allowing immigration agents into non-public areas or sharing confidential records without a warrant signed by a judge. Sue Roche, the executive director of the Immigrant Legal Advocacy Project, said this law will help protect people who have been forced to withdraw from public life to try and stay safe. They should be forced to withdraw from public life. They are not entitled to a public life in America as an illegal. They should be in fear of being deported because they should be deported. This is insanity. How can you continuously try to make people feel bad for these individuals who are criminals? What are we doing? But they just want a better life. Then they can make a better life in their home country. What are we doing? People are afraid to send their children to school. Good. They're afraid to go to work. Good. Apply for new jobs. They shouldn't be getting jobs as an illegal. Seeking higher education. They shouldn't be entitled to higher education as an illegal. Or to have any contact with Maine's law enforcement. Good. The only contact with law enforcement should be getting deported, which includes seeking protection or reporting crimes. Hello, yes, sir. I know that I'm a criminal, but I would like to report a different crime. What are we doing? What the fuck am I reading? I hate Maine. When members of our community are too afraid to go about their daily life, to educate their children, to share public safety or public health information, we're all harmed. No, we're all harmed when you duplicitous clowns allow these illegals to stay in our communities. Our as in Americans. They can go about their daily life in their home country. They can educate their children in their home country. They can share public safety and public health information in their home country. It's like these people are trying to make it into it's a eugenics pogrom to send people back to their home countries. No, it's fucking not. That's where they live. That's their country. Those are their people. If their country is a shithole, they should make it better. Us who don't want America to be a shithole, we want to make it better. When you become a dad, you get the idea of wanting to leave a crap hike to make a better life for your kids. You understand that? It doesn't mean you get to be shielded from the consequences of your actions because you understand it. Yeah, I understand that people want to do whatever they can to make sure their child has a better life, but a lot of the time, these people are very similar to my mother, where they just like use the children as a feel bad for us and give us all your free shit. It's not even like a they care for the kids kind of situation. Look at how many crocodile tears we've seen. Roche said that the recent killing of Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero by an ICE agent in Biddeford had heightened this fear. I don't even remember which shooting this was, but like there's no way that the ICE officer was in the wrong based on all of the other footage we've seen. And it's like, it's sad that that's become the case, right? Like 30 years ago, it would have been like, well, the Fed is obviously in the wrong. But now, after how many fucking body cam videos like make it so you see the reality and it's actually not the Fed that's in the wrong? It's just like, come on, man. I will never forgive the left. Not for wanting me broke and dead and my children raped and brainwashed, but for making me fucking defend feds. The 26-year-old father and husband was driving to work when an ICE agent shot and killed him near his apartment. What a funny way of rephrasing that. What a funny way of rephrasing tried to run over an ICE agent. The ICE outlaws are a necessary and key part of Maine's response to the federal administration, Roche said. They're needed to protect all of us, and by all of us he means not Americans, and to begin to repair some of the trust in Maine's public institutions where the trust has been lost. You know how to restore trust in Maine's institutions? Work with ICE to deport the invaders. What are you talking about? Ruben Torres, the advocacy and policy manager at Maine Immigrants' Right Coalition, said the ICE out of Maine laws offer a different path forward following the January surge and the July 13th murder of Guerrero. If these past 2 weeks have taught us anything, it's this: community is stronger than fear. Mainers have shown up for one another, neighbors have supported neighbors, organizations have stood shoulder to shoulder, and Mainers have picked up the phone. Together we have demonstrated that the answer to fear is not division, it's community. And that's why we're here today. To build a Maine where local resources remain dedicated to local communities? You mean like Jubbaland, the local community of Jubbaland, where your tax dollars are going to fraudulently? It's just like, I get so fucking angry hearing this rhetoric now, because it's like, when they talk about this, we know they don't mean Americans. We know they don't mean taxpayers. We know that they mean the, like, invaders that they have named their pets, because they can do whatever the fuck they want as long as they wield this cudgel of, like, chaos and violence against actual citizens. No warrant, big problem. ICE out of our homes law protects Maine renters. We all have a right to be safe at home. Maine's new ICE out of our homes law will help protect renters and landlords from rogue federal agents. So I brought this up so you can have a peer into the mind of insanity. This is an article by a guy, Zachary Hayden, chief counsel, he, him. He needs those pronouns bold-faced on an article he wrote, obviously. But this is a peek into the mind of someone who thinks that this is a good idea, who thinks that this is the correct direction we should be going in. The safety of home. Our nation's legal tradition has long recognized the home as a special place of safety, privacy, and refuge. For example, there's a long-standing principle of self-defense in criminal law that permits the use of force to defend a home and its inhabitants. This principle is called the Castle Doctrine. It is a remarkable feature of our legal system that applies with equal force to all homes, from a single-room studio apartment to the sort of multi-room, multi-acre mansion more commonly associated with the term castle. Both are considered castles under the Castle Doctrine, and the people living in both are equally entitled to safety and security in their homes. Could you ever have imagined a scenario where a leftist would invoke the Castle Doctrine? And the fact that the leftist is invoking the Castle Doctrine so that foreign invaders who don't belong here and are here illegally can protect themselves from being deported instead of you protecting yourself from burglars and rapists and murderers entering your home. This is like one of the most disgusting things that I have read, and I cannot imagine what these people will do when their policies and their beliefs eventually come to their logical conclusion. I swear to God, of course they'd invoke it for non-Americans. Yeah, it's like beyond disgusting. I do not have words in the English language to describe how grotesque and treasonous this line of thinking is. You, American citizen, you're not allowed to use your Second Amendment right to defend yourself. In fact, we have to make all these caveats and laws to prevent you from doing so in different ways. However, this foreign invader here who wants to steal from you, they can defend themselves under the Second Amendment. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. When it comes to the Constitution, people are not upholding it correctly, and it is being exploited and used against us in order to restrict us, remove our rights, and conquer us. If we try to stick strictly to the laws that we have been bound by, we're not going to get our way out of this. We're not going to. And I agree with the people who are just like, well, instead of eschewing it, people should just uphold it correctly. I agree. But people are not going to just. So what is there to be done? The safety of home. Oi, Yakami, illegals aren't in a home. They're squatters. They do not get that defense. That's also true. Illegals should not have had any access to renting. They should have not had any access to mortgages. They should not have any access to buying homes. Any home that an illegal is living in is not their home by definition. They are squatting in a house that they have no right to. They must be deported. Another example comes from prohibitions against unreasonable searches and seizures found in the federal Constitution and all state constitutions. Under the Fourth Amendment to U.S. Constitution, people have a reasonable expectation of privacy in their homes. If law enforcement wants to search through a person's private home without permission, or even bring a drug-sniffing dog to the doorway, they need to get a search warrant signed by a judge. Again, these people will use your principles against you in order to conquer you. And there's nothing that you can do about it if you refuse to drop your principles and actually fight them where they stand. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about your principles. They just care about how they can use it to make you do what they want, and also to prevent you from defending yourself. As Justice Scalia noted in his majority opinion in Florida versus Jardines, when it comes to the Fourth Amendment, the home is the first among equals. And like the Castle Doctrine, the protection against unreasonable searches of the home applies with equal force to mansions and apartments alike. Further, the protection is available for people who own their homes and people who rent. These protections are key to letting people live freely in the safety and comfort of their own home. Illegals don't have homes here. They are squatters in houses they have no rights to. They must be deported. Here's the problem. Landlords often know private information about their tenants, including their immigration status. Even the most caring, supportive landlords who want to respect their tenants' privacy could be bullied by coercive federal agents trying to get them to turn over information that could put their tenants' safety or even their lives at risk. Their safety and their lives are not at risk if they do not resist being detained. If you try to run over a federal agent, you will get shot. That's like very simple cause and effect. You understand this question will make some people mad, but you need to ask, what if ICE burst into a home and arrests someone that is found to be a US citizen? You want the illegals gone and you want immigration to be halted, but how do we protect our people? Well, don't harbor illegal immigrants. End of. There hasn't been an actual US citizen arrested except for the one that was harboring a pedophile illegal immigrant. That's the only one so far that I know of that has been arrested, and I feel like that makes sense that he was arrested. Worse, unsavory landlords might use immigration status to pressure tenants not to report substandard or dangerous living conditions, or they might turn over immigration information to federal authorities because they find it easier than the legal eviction process. You see, they better turn over immigration information. I don't care if it's like easier than eviction. Also, if they're trying to evict someone, what the fuck did that person do to get evicted? I have never seen, personally, an eviction that did not make sense. Sorry, if you're getting an eviction notice, if you're actually getting evicted, you fucked up, brother. It's very easy to not get an eviction notice. Landlords do this thanks to your liberal policies. Yeah, and I was about to say, those landlords should face jail time and fines for harboring illegal immigrants and renting property to illegal immigrants. Send the illegals home, deport them post-haste, but these landlords, much like the companies that hire illegals, also need to have punishments. If you remove the incentive, you remove the behavior. Tenant protection laws protect all of us except for illegals, because tenant protection laws should not apply to people who should not be able to rent or buy homes under the law. They should not be able to do these things, because we all have an interest in making sure that people are able to avoid homelessness and that we can all live safely in our own homes. Yeah, I do want to make sure people avoid homelessness. Send them back to their home country. On July 29th, Maine's new ICE Out of Our Homes law goes into effect. This law prohibits landlords from disclosing certain personal and sensitive details about tenants, such as a tenant's national origin, citizenship, immigration status, or alien registration number, among other details. If a landlord breaks the law, there are clear penalties. The tenant can recover the actual damages they suffered, or $1,000, whichever is greater, as well as reasonable attorney's fees. And the tenant can obtain a court order to prevent the recurrence of unlawful conduct. Maine is trying to codify in law that illegal immigrants who shouldn't be here and don't belong here and commit crime to get here have more rights than you do, and they're using the Constitution to defend this egregious behavior. You must learn. The Constitution is being used against you, and no one is going to actually use it in the correct way. We are far beyond that at this point. Could this incentivize landlords not renting to illegals to completely avoid dealing with this law? I doubt it, because it's going to be a lot of landlords who are just like, yeah, I don't really give a fuck. They just want the money. We're confident that if landlords know the law, they're going to follow it. And if federal immigration agents try to trick or bully landlords into disclosing personal information about their tenants, they'll be told to come back with a valid judicial warrant, just like they would need for any other search of a person's home. Which is, again, a weird thing to say, because all of these ICE agents, they have orders of detention for these people. They have active warrants for the removal of these people. When people sign a lease, they should feel confident that their sensitive personal information is safe and secure. Unfortunately, ICE agents cannot be trusted. You could have expanded that to just every federal person, but unfortunately, the feds are more trustworthy than the illegal immigrants and the duplicitous communists who defend them. I will never forgive the left for making me defend fucking feds, dude. This is insanity. They lied in January about their revoltingly titled Operation Catch of the Day, which they said was targeting the worst of the worst. But really, it turned our communities upside down while causing terror to our neighbors, our coworkers, and the kids with whom our kids go to school. Good. It's not terror, it's protecting the neighborhood. Only 11 of the nearly 200 people arrested even had any criminal record. I think you mean 200 out of 200, because entering the country illegally is a criminal act. What are we doing here? People writing these articles would call the cops on you for trespassing on a blade of grass on their property. Oh my god, I saw the funniest fucking video the other day, and it was in Maine too.
Abolish. Keep the immigrants. Deport the racists. Abolish ICE.
But you better not use my driveway to turn around. You better not turn around in my driveway.
His mocking voice reminds me of fucking Father Jimothy, you know? Such a great fucking video. Oh my goodness. Why are they so retarded, chat? The ACLU says, we're representing one man who was swept up by ICE, put in fear for his life, and then let go. I can only imagine that this person needs to be deported, but it's on the ACLU site, so I doubt we're going to get any actual information about him. Carvajal Munoz versus Raven Camp. Let's see what kind of criminal activity this guy did. Maine lawsuit is testing the boundaries of suing federal immigration agents. Federal law makes it very difficult to file lawsuits against feds, but some states have adopted their own laws to give people a so-called cause of action to sue. One morning in late January, civil engineer Juan Sebastian Carva, whatever the fuck, was driving to work in Portland, Maine, when federal agents in town for the so-called Operation Catch of the Day immigration crackdown boxed in his car, smashed his windows, and shackled him, allegedly refusing to look at his work visa, as they locked him in a windowless cell in Massachusetts. Hours later, he was released without explanation about 100 miles from home at night. Although Munoz had a valid visa to be in the country, he alleges the immigration agents falsely arrested him for hours, violating his 4th and 5th Amendment rights to equal protection and due process. His experience is far from exceptional. Scenes like this, blah, blah, blah. Lawyers and state lawmakers are vying to change. He's using a Maine law to sue federal agents, provides a state law cause of action for violations of the federal constitution by federal officers. In so doing, he is serving as an early test of the legal theory that those state-level statutes could serve to constrain ICE agents. Okay, so this doesn't exactly tell me anything about what he did. Now that's a name. Yeah, no pictures of the car, nothing. Munoz, who is being represented by the ACLU, is still invoking Bivens as well as the Federal Tort Claims Act in a civil suit against the federal agents who arrested him. His attorneys argue that both of these should provide enough standing, but they hope that, even if a judge doesn't agree and would otherwise throw the case out, his claims could still proceed in federal court under the Maine Civil Rights Act alone. While state law is usually contested in state courts, federal law removes legal action against federal officers to federal courts and generally gives federal courts original jurisdiction over constitutional questions, meaning that even cases brought only under these state laws would be heard in federal courts. Mr. Carvajal was being abducted during the 15 hours that he spent in ICE custody. He did not have the opportunity to find a lawyer and run to court and say, "Stop detaining me, release me." Scott Michelman, legal director of the ACLU of DC, who's representing Munoz, told Bolts. All we can do now after the fact is try to get him compensation for his ordeal, and also, through that compensation, try to deter further unconstitutional aggression by federal officers. See, once again, this guy should not have any constitutional protections. Michelman is very familiar with just how difficult it is to sue federal officers using federal law, following the infamous 2020 clearing of DC's Lafayette Square of police reform protesters. I don't really care about this guy's opinions on shit. I want to know more about, like, why Munoz was detained in the first place, right? This doesn't seem like it will have that information, though, unfortunately. Maine engineer with an H-1B visa sues over long day in custody. Trump administration policies have added limits and costs for one industry-employed visa holder, a humiliating detention. Maine engineer from Colombia working legally under an H-1B visa was detained, shackled, and held by U.S. This is probably going to be the same write-up that we read earlier, since they used the same shackled wording. Long day in January. During an operation meant to sweep up illegal immigrants in the state for deportation, ICE released the engineer after 12 hours, but now he's suing and an agent who held him for wrongful detention. Studied for a master's degree at the University of Maine before accepting a job related to bridge soil and foundation analysis at GEI Consultants in Portland. His detention and lawsuit come in a year when engineering and other firms face sharply reduced opportunities to fill open positions with non-citizens using the H-1B visa program as the Trump administration limits legal immigration. Why is that a problem? That's a good thing. Sharply reduced opportunities to fill open positions with non-citizens? That's a good thing. Especially the way that these weirdos worded it. It makes it sound even better. Like, what? What the fuck? On the morning of January 22nd, while Munoz drove to work in Portland, ICE agents involved in the sweep stopped him and sought identification. According to his lawsuit filed in federal district court in Portland, he displayed a real ID driver's license while at the wheel, with the driver's side window still closed, and was reaching for his phone when an agent smashed the window and placed him in a full-body shackle. I feel like we are missing some information here. There's, I hope these agents were wearing body cams, because what the fuck are they talking about? What followed, according to Munoz, was a day of forced riding along as the agents, one wore a mask, seemingly sought to deliberately humiliate him by crisscrossing the area but never returning him to his still-running car with the keys inside. Later in the day, the agents took him with other prisoners, the fucking editor here, to a parking lot where they were offered a chance to urinate and then drove to a detention center in Burlington, Mass, more than 100 miles away, where Munoz was held for a short while before being abruptly released and forced to make his way back to his car by bus. Munoz, whose case is supported by the ACLU, claims that he was deliberately profiled by ICE agents based on his physical appearance. Even though I followed all the rules, federal agents targeted me based on my race, he said in a press release issued when the lawsuit was filed. Full-body shackle isn't something done for the average offender. Yeah, it's like, we're definitely missing some information. ICE could have been in the wrong here, but the way that this is worded makes me incredulous about the way it's being told. A nice spokesperson said it doesn't comment on litigation. It isn't clear if Munoz is still employed by GEI Consultants. A spokeswoman for the company, citing privacy concerns, declined to comment on that or on the company's use of H-1B visas to fill positions. This is just about H-1B visa stuff. That has nothing to do with the actual guy. Maine's new ICE out of our homes law is a response to the Trump administration's lawless actions, and it'll take effect alongside 2 other laws: ICE out of policing and ICE out of schools and state health care. If the federal government won't protect people in Maine, then Mainers will look after one another, just like we always have. These aren't Mainers. These aren't Mainers, man. These are not American citizens. Nearly 100 years ago, Justice Brandeis observed in his Dissident in Olmsted versus U.S. that the right to be left alone is the most comprehensive of rights, and the right most valued by civilized men. The new ICE out of our homes law, the right to be left alone is the most comprehensive of rights, and the right most valued by civilized men. Did they just accidentally say that everyone who is on the left is uncivilized? Did they just accidentally say that the goal of the left is to destroy civilized men by saying this? Because nobody on the left is willing to let anyone be left alone. This is why we've had cancel culture for so long. That flies directly in the face of the right to be left alone. The fuck are we talking about here? Fucking, my brain was on the slow gear, but that snapped into place. I was like, wait, hold a minute. Hold your horses, buddy. The new ICE out of our homes law establishes clear legal standards that protect everyone by ensuring people can follow the law, rather than give in to pressure or coercion from a rogue agency like ICE. You keep calling it that, but that doesn't make it true. In that way, it safeguards the right to be left alone against landlords and government actors who would intrude upon it. What about the rights of landlords to not have to rent to people that will destroy their property? What about that? Well, the state of Maine only has the authority to regulate what is under its own jurisdiction. ICE outlaws will make every community safer. However, these protections will only work if they're fully implemented. A wide range of public officials oversee many of the local systems affected by these laws, including county commissioners, mayors, police chiefs, superintendents, and sheriffs. It should not be forgotten that this is exactly what they said when we need to actually replace these people. Because it's not just replacing the politicians, apparently. It's also replacing police chiefs, superintendents, and sheriffs. So, let's, fucking do it, buddy. How the fuck are state laws going to override federal laws? You're still not sure how they think this is gonna work? It almost sounds like they want to go to war with ICE. How state laws override federal laws? You know, I feel like there might be a flag that people fly when they're rolling coal that might have something to say about states' rights, you know? And, you know, maybe they even, like, lost a war over it as well, you know? I don't know. The Democrats, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Scarborough, Maine, removing ICE facility, city council meeting. Lady claims we must have illegal foreigners in Maine. Otherwise, white people will die.
What?
I work at one of the Maine's biggest processing plants in accounting. I need you to understand, businesses in Maine do not have local people to do these jobs. We do not seasonal work. My company has paid hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years in order to get these people.
Look at how she's fucking shaking. Look at how she's shaking that she might lose her slave labor. That's insane. This is like something I would expect from like a Confederate lass back in the day. It's like, but if you get rid of the slaves, how can I have my pretty dresses?
In Maine, to do the work they are legally allowed to do. I can no longer trust the community police officers, not knowing if I am to say that I have a friend of color that they might tip off ICE and end up outside their door.
Did she just say she's afraid to interact with police because if she says she has a friend of color, they might arrest them? She does realize that not all illegals are brown, right? She does know that, right? Hold on a minute.
Police officers, not knowing if I am to say that I have a friend of color that they might tip off ICE and end up outside their door.
That's insane. That's insane. What the fuck? This woman is nuts. She is nuts. That's crazy. Also, imagine referring to a friend of yours as my friend of color instead of just my friend. Like... Liberal racism continues to be undefeated.
You need to do the right thing if you can call yourself Americans. My family came from Canada.
That's true. We do need to do the right thing if we want to continue to call ourselves Americans, which is to say no to these crazy women who cry about these nonsense things and the deportations. I keep pronouncing it like abortion. The deportations must continue.
Germany not too long ago. If we continue this fear and if we continue this racism, we will not be the Maine. We will die out. The population of white people is going to die out. No one's going to move here.
That's actually completely the inverse. In fact, I remember reading a story and finding out that like some horrific murders that happened in Maine were done like by a black man to other black people when Maine was like 98.9% white. You know, so like her entire thing of like the white people in Maine will die out and no one will want to move here if we get rid of illegal immigrants is just fucking insanity. It's like, what are you talking about? That's just illogical. It's even more illogical when we think about your talking points to begin with, right? Again, people, regardless of their skin color, but especially we have mass migration from third world countries coming to countries that are overwhelmingly white. Why would they come here if they think white people are some big bad evil beast? Can we talk about that lady crying for nonsense reasons? To be fair, it's Maine and no one does want to live there. I mean, like, the reasons to not live in Maine is that it's far away from anything that matters. But it's like, if you're cool with like beautiful scenery and beautiful like ocean water, it's a great place to be. I loved camping in Maine. Camping in Maine is wonderful. I saw a little thingy, but I don't know where it went. Cladex, thank you. We must continue the decortions. True and real. Maybe she's a true believer that the USA was built and runs on slaves. Jen Jacko, thank you. She looks like a homelier Greta. She is just crazy. I cannot imagine like being that emotional about fake scenario that I've invented in my head. A Maine woman who went to California to see her transitioning son ended up dead in his home from a vicious attack, police say. Angela Caprioli, 61, was allegedly beaten to death with a hammer last week while visiting her son in Laguna Beach. Yay! I love supporting the LGBTQ! Safford James Wolfson, 36, shown in the New York Post photos as partially resembling a female. I don't know who at the Maine Wire wrote this, but that's a fucking good one. Shown in the New York Post photos as partly resembling a female, entered no plea during his first court appearance. Wolfson was hospitalized with self-inflicted injuries after allegedly murdering his own mother and slicing his own neck. Police say Wolfson's grandmother called 911 after coming upon a gruesome bloody scene in his house. Investigators said the grandmother first found Wolfson lying on the floor covered in blood before discovering Caprioli in a bedroom with grisly injuries to her head and face. Neighbor Dustin Petit told the California Post that he witnessed Wolfson and Caprioli involved in a tense argument before the alleged killing, according to the New York Post. I saw her outside talking with him and it seemed like a pretty hostile conversation, Petit was quoted. The town of Caprioli's residence wasn't specified, but authorities said she lived in Maine. Wolfson has publicly identified as transgender in social media profiles, according to media reports. Bro should identify as a fucking planet. What are we doing? What the actual... How do you even get this body shape? That's fucking wild. I'm shocked. An X account with Wolfson's name described the owner as a quote-unquote trans girl looking for fun in LA, while another profile allegedly associated with the suspect showed him wearing dresses, miniskirts, and crop tops. Crop top like a fucking blanket. What the hell? Get in my belly. I feel incredibly bad for this mother. Because, like, what the fuck? What a horrible turn of events. And I've said this is gonna start happening more often. Like, way back, before I started streaming, I was, like, watching I Am Jazz. I was just like, you know, one day, these people are gonna just start murdering their parents. It's just gonna start happening. And everyone's gonna be like, wow, why would they do that? I have absolutely no idea what would cause them to murder their parents. And crop top, but it was just a normal shirt that couldn't pass the mound. Holy shit. It's a Saint Row custom character. Bro, Kirsche Nostradamus. It's not even pattern recognition. It's just logic at this point. It's Gorlock the Destroyer's trans sister. We can confirm that Troy Jackson and his longtime partner are second cousins, and they have 2 children together. Steve Robinson of the Maine Wire writing, in a sign of how insular and remote Allagash is, Democratic Senate candidate Troy Jackson has 2 children with his second cousin, Lana Pelletier, whose father is cousin to Jackson's mom. The tiny St. John River Valley town of Allagash, population 240, has long been the butt of Maine jokes about its handful of last names and family trees that don't so much branch as tangle. Now Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Troy Dale Jackson, 58, and on his 5th pacemaker, finds his own ancestry under the same microscope that eventually ran his predecessor, oyster hobbyist Graham Plattner, out of American politics and into hiding. Jackson, a 26-year politician and lobbyist, has made a career of bragging that he is a 5th-generation logger. But you don't have to go far back the generational line to find where it crosses paths with the ancestors of his significant other, Lana M. Pelletier. Ice crazy, man. Allagash tipsters and genealogical records confirm that Jackson's longtime significant other, Lana Pelletier, his high school sweetheart, and the mother of his 2 adult sons, Chance and Camden, is, in fact, his second cousin by blood. Logger barely never mind, it's his cousin. Jackson and Pelletier share the same great-grandparents, Thomas Pelletier and Edith Thibodeau. Thomas and Edith's daughter, Albertine, was Troy's grandmother. Their son, Louis Sr., was Lana's grandfather. That makes Troy and Lana second cousins on the Pelletier line. The pair had been together for Jackson's entire political career, stretching from his early days as pro-gun, pro-life, conservative working-class rabble-rouser in the late 1990s and early 2000s through his rise to become a pro-gun control, pro-late-term abortion socialist state Senate president. Well, I mean, I guess if, like, your family is known for practicing incest, it makes sense that you're pro-late-term abortion. That makes sense, right? Like, you want to abort the monsters before you create them, right? They're not even going to be human at that point. You're going to go beyond the Habsburg face. Pelletier had eschewed the spotlight, slugging along at various state jobs, while Jackson has pursued his political ambitions and lucrative side hustles as the political enforcer for Maine's dwindling labor movement. Now, his sudden elevation as the Democratic nominee to challenge Republican Senator Susan Collins has brought renewed focus to both candidates, with left-wing muckrakers circling conspiracy theories about Senator Collins' love life and the retirement investments of her husband. I know Collins is, like, essentially a Democrat wearing red, but it's crazy to me that the Democrats are like, okay, who do we have as a candidate? A woman-abusing Nazi and a guy who married his second cousin and had kids with her. Like, it's so incredibly funny that everyone who runs has been, like, dysgenic in some way. The more curious significant other story in the Senate race might just be the Aroostook romance that could have taken root at an Allagash family reunion. Jackson has, at various points, referred to Pelletier as his wife in official bios and statements. Locals in the historically Catholic village of Allagash, however, are quick to set the record straight with the dry precision of people who have known both families, or just the one family, depending on your perspective, for generations. The couple is not, and has never been, legally married. If they're not legally married, does that mean that they knew that they were second cousins when they decided to create 2 children? That's kind of fucking crazy. Like, if I for some reason was dating a man, like I finally found my himbo, and then discovered they were like my first or second cousin, I would be devastated, not only because I accidentally incested, but also because any relationship now must stop. Like, that's horrifying. But instead, they were just like, oh, you know, whatever, the incest babies don't matter, we can keep doing it. They had that opinion of that guy in chat where it's like, well, it's only 0.3. We can make the incest babies, don't worry about it.
What are you talking about, Shelbyville? Why would we want to marry our cousins?
Because they're so attractive.
First cousin's very different than second cousin. That would be it would be soul crushing. Don't you hate it when you accidentally incest? They simply live together, raise kids together, and appear together on the occasional mortgage and lawsuit paperwork. In a place where everyone knows everyone's business, the lack of a marriage certificate is less of a scandal than local trivia. And then they have the family tree here. Thomas Pelletier and Edith Thibodeau. Albertine Tina Pelletier, Robert O'Leary Sr., with Louis Pelletier Sr. and Ethel O'Leary. That's crazy that it's literally like 2 fucking branches that come back together. That chatter was right! It is a literal fucking wreath! What the fuck? What? Jesus fucking Christ, these people play Crusader Kings a little too much. I don't know what they're doing, but it's not right. That ain't right, man. Oh my god, he even calls it a family wreath! That's fucking funny! The family wreath, Jackson and Pelletier's common great-grandparents were Thomas Pelletier and Edith Thibodeau Pelletier. Thomas and Edith had 2 children who matter here. Albertine Pelletier O'Leary and Louis A. Pelletier St. Albertine was the mother of Colleen McBrearty, and Colleen was the mother of Troy Jackson. Louis Sr. was the father of Louis A. Louis Pelletier Jr. Louis Jr. and his wife, Patricia Patty Gardner Pelletier, were Lana Pelletier's parents. That means Colleen McBrearty and Louis Pelletier Jr. were first cousins. Their children, Troy Jackson and Lana Pelletier, are second cousins because they share the same great-grandparents, Thomas and Edith Pelletier. Second cousins, not first, the critical distinction. Before the pearl clutching begins, let's be precise. Because the difference between first cousin and second cousin relationships is both legal and biological, and Maine law draws a bright line. First cousins share a pair of grandparents. They inherit, on average, about 12.5% of their DNA from the same recent ancestors. That shared genetic material raises the risk of recessive genetic disorders in any children roughly twofold compared with the general population, from a baseline of about 2 to 3% for major birth defects to roughly 4 to 6%. According to reviews by the National Society of Genetic Counselors and studies published in the Journal of Genetic Counseling. In short, Western man has, for millennia, tabooed first cousin marriage because of the progeny of such unions frequently exhibit physical deformities and severe cognitive impairment. Habsburg! That's part of why Pakistani culture, both in Pakistan and in the British Isles, oh boy, Britain, which Pakistani people have been colonizing for half a century, is notoriously maligned for astronomically high rates of consanguinity, a cultural fact that has materialized across the UK with obvious consequences. Maine law reflects the concern that Pakistani-style incest should be prohibited. I love that there is a term now, Pakistani-style incest. Let's fucking go. Bizarrely, the law was introduced only during the Reagan administration. In 1985, the 112th Maine legislature passed LD 873 and HP 603, titled An Act to Prohibit Marriage Between Certain Blood Relatives. It was enacted as public law in 1985, Chapter 181, and took effect on September 19, 1985. Under Title 19A 701 of the Maine Revised Statutes, marriage between first cousins is prohibited, but not completely. First cousins who find their love destined in the stars can obtain a physician's certificate of genetic counseling. That's thanks to an amendment 2 years later that created a pathway for familial lovers who really wanted to test the genetic lottery. But why? But why? The counseling requirement has been on the books since the mid-1980s, with clarifying language added in the 1990s, making Maine one of the few states that permits first cousin marriage if Dr. Deliverance signs the permission slip. What the fuck? Second cousins, by contrast, share a pair of great-grandparents. Their coefficient of relationship is only about 3.125%, roughly a quarter of the first cousin figure. Geneticists regard the elevated risk of recessive disorders as negligible compared with the risk for closer cousins. But you still have to deal with the public shaming of marrying and fucking your cousin. And your kids are gonna be derided as like the products of cousin fuckers for their entire lives. Why would you do this? Hey boy, you got a purty mouth. With the laws Maine is trying to pass, first cousin marriages makes much sense. I hate that makes sense. Fuck you. Maine imposes no special restrictions on second cousin marriage, and it is treated like any other union between consenting adults. Jackson and Pelletier fall squarely into the second category, should they ever decide to formally get hitched. Family records and local knowledge in Allagash identify them as the children of first cousins. Jackson's mother, Colleen O'Leary McBrearty, and Pelletier's father are first cousins through the Pelletier line that runs deep in the St. John Valley. So, hold on. If I'm reading this right, their parents are a first cousin marriage, so they are the product of incest already. And now they're doing more incest with each other, even though they're only second cousins. Am I reading this correctly? Family records and local knowledge in Allagash identify them as the children of first cousins. Jackson's mother, Colleen McBrearty, and Pelletier's father are first cousins through the Pelletier line that runs deep in the St. John Valley. That sounds like it's saying their parents are also incestuous. Good thing Foxu ain't my cousin. No, they're IDing that there's two parents who are first cousins, know that those two first cousins are married. You just don't really care what they want to do with each other. Yeah, you see, you shouldn't have that laissez-faire attitude towards incest, because that laissez-faire attitude toward incest is what gives you Pakistan. Their parents were cousins, not married. Okay, so their parents are cousins, not married. Okay. How is incest so confusing? Well, it wouldn't have to be confusing if people wouldn't fuck within their family tree. That makes the couple second cousins by blood, close enough for small-town knowing glances, distant enough that the law and biology shrug. American politics' long, awkward history with cousins. If the revelation feels awkward in 2026, American political history offers a robust, if slightly squirm-inducing context. Cousin marriage, or at least cousin coupling, is practically a founding-era tradition, practiced by figures far more exalted than a logger lobbyist who now makes his home in Augusta. John Adams, the second president, married Abigail Smith, his third cousin. Thomas Jefferson married Martha Wales Skelton, also his third cousin. Martin Van Buren wed Hannah Hose, his first cousin once removed. Does the once removed matter? Doesn't that mean that it's like through marriage, so they're not blood related? Franklin D. Roosevelt married Eleanor Roosevelt, his fifth cousin once removed. A degree of relatedness so remote that geneticists treat it as essentially unrelated, yet still close enough that the Roosevelt name stayed comfortably in the family. I think that's really weird. Right? Like, I would feel awkward marrying someone who had the same last name as me. Removed refers to up and down generationally. Your uncle and aunt is your first cousin once removed. Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought that was like cross marriage. I've never had to think this hard about a family tree before. John Adams' grandson, John Adams II, married his first cousin, Mary Catherine Helen, in a White House ceremony. Alabama Governor Bibb Graves married his first cousin, Dixie Bibb. Even modern figures have gotten in on the act. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani's first marriage was to Regina Peruggi, his second cousin once removed. How does this happen so frequently? The practice was once common among the Anglo-American elite for the same reasons it persists in many traditional societies, keeping property, status, and political alliances inside the extended family. It acquired its modern stigma only in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as genetic science advanced and progressive-era reformers began targeting quote-unquote inbreeding among the rural poor and certain immigrant groups. I can't tell if this guy is like making an argument for incest to reemerge. By the time Maine adjusted its statutes in the 1980s, the cultural taboo had hardened, even as the actual genetic risk for second cousins remained trivial. In Allagash itself, the Jackson-Pelletier arrangement had been an open secret for decades. The couple's two sons are grown. Pelletier works as a clinical care specialist with the Maine Department of Health and Human Services. Jackson has built a political brand on being the authentic working-class guy from the far north woods. He do have the backstory as someone from the far north woods. The fact that his domestic partner is also a blood relative of the second cousin variety may strike outsiders as the punchline to a deliverance joke. The comparisons between Appalachia and Allagash write themselves. To locals who have watched the same surnames, Pelletier, McBrearty, Jackson, and O'Leary, recycle through town records for generations, it is simply another data point in a place where the dating pool is shallower than the trout streams. Wouldn't you, I don't know, want to look farther outside of the dating pool if the dating pool is like a splash pool, man? That's kind of shallow, brother. Like, I'd be like, I don't really want to risk fucking a family member, so I'm gonna go like a couple towns over, bud. There's such a lack of genetic diversity in Iceland that they made an app to prevent accidental incest. I feel like that's a good idea, right? If you live in a place where like you could just accidentally end up dating a family member, isn't it good to make an app to prevent you from doing that? It seems like a good idea. Jackson has never publicly addressed the cousin connection. His campaign materials continue to describe Pelletier as his partner. Well, that's because he's a Democrat. Older official bios occasionally slipped into wife. In the grand tradition of American politics, where presidents married their cousins and the republic somehow survived, Troy Jackson and Lana Pelletier's arrangement is less a scandal than a footnote written in the fine print of a very small town's genealogy. Where the relationship between Jackson and Pelletier may have real political consequences comes down to the rules of the Secretary of the U.S. Senate, who handles the financial disclosures that candidates and elected members of Congress are required to submit. Typically, polls must submit detailed accounts of their income, assets, and liabilities, as well as the finances of their spouses. But because Pelletier and Jackson never wed, and because Maine does not recognize any form of common law marriage, it's not clear whether Jackson's financial disclosures will cover the second cousin couple's full financial situation. If Pelletier, as merely the mother of Jackson's adult children, is exempt from inclusion in the financial disclosures in a way that Colin's husband is not, then the knitted family tree could engage in all kinds of clever accounting tricks to artificially impoverish Jackson as a way of maintaining his working class image. I never even thought of this. Like that is an insane angle for optics. That's fucking wild. fucking doing incest to subvert the political system later on in life. Could you imagine? As of this week, Jackson hasn't filed the disclosures or a request for an extension, and the circumstances of his nomination are so unusual that the Secretary of the Senate has yet to say when Jackson will be required to make his finances transparent, or whether those disclosures will include assets placed under the name of his second cousin. Yeah, I don't know if I really care that it used to be more common to fuck your cousins. I don't really care that the genetic chance of your children having disabilities is like only slightly smaller than if you're fucking your first cousin. That's still fucking weird, man. Marrying your cousin to hide money from the government. Smart. I don't think you should purposefully fuck people in your family, man.